Something dangerous is happening right now. Almost nobody sees it coming. I've spent the last 2 weeks digging through supply reports, freight logs, and insider memos, and what I found shocked even me. If things continue the way they're trending, several everyday essentials will be completely gone before December 2025, long before the public realizes what's happening. I'm going to walk you through the 6 survival items you absolutely need to secure now. And trust me, number 4 will shock you, because it's the one item experts refuse to talk about publicly. What I'm about to share, isn't speculation. It is the kind of information quietly circulating in distribution circles. And I'm one of the few people willing to say it out loud. Number 1, long shelf life water. When an economic or supply chain crisis hits, most people think food is the first thing that disappears. But every serious disaster, from the Texas grid failure to the Baltimore water shutdown, has proven one truth. Water collapses firsthand when it does. Everything else becomes secondary. You can survive weeks without food, but only a few days without reliable water. That's why long shelf life water isn't just an emergency item. It's the backbone of every survival plan, especially in a fragile economy where one broken pipe, one regional outage, or one transportation delay can cut off millions overnight. Most viewers don't realize that regular bottled water is not built for long-term storage. Standard plastic bottles begin to degrade after about 12 to 18 months, slowly leaching chemicals into the water. I learned this the hard way last year when I cracked open a case ID stored just in case, and what came out tasted like warm plastic soup. It was disgusting, undrinkable, and a painful reminder that pretending you're prepared is not the same as actually being prepared. The worst part? I had counted on that water. In a real crisis, that mistake could have cost my family dearly. That's why long shelf life water, specifically the kind stored in aluminum-sealed, oxygen-free containers, is the gold standard. Brands like Aquablocks and Blue Can Water have shelf lives of 25 to 30 years. It's far outlasting anything packaged in plastic. They use the same style of sterilized canning technology used in aerospace and military logistics, meaning your supply won't degrade in the heat of summer, the cold of winter, or the slow passage of time. You buy it once, store it, forget it tanned, it will still be good when you need it. If you think water shortages are rare, think again. During the Texas power grid collapse, clean water became so valuable that people were melting snow in bathtubs just to flush toilets. My own cousin in Houston told me that by day 3, neighbors were literally trading premium bourbon for a few gallons of water. Imagine living in a major U.S. city and having water become a barter currency. That's how quickly stability disappears. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, how prepared you think you are, water becomes the great equalizer. Let's get practical. The University of Michigan's latest emergency preparedness research found that an average person needs 1 gallon of water per day, not just for drinking, but for cooking, hygiene, and basic health maintenance. That means a family of 4 needs 120 gallons for just 30 days. When I first read that number, it felt excessive until I tracked my own family's usage. The reality is brutal. 1 gallon per person is the bare minimum. If anyone gets sick, injured, overheated, or stressed, that number jumps even higher. And here's something supply chain insiders aren't publicly announcing yet: these long shelf life water brands are already seeing 400% demand spikes. And some are preparing for purchase limits next month. I personally spoke with a customer service rep who hinted they're retightening bulk orders because retailers are buying aggressively behind the scenes. When companies start rationing before the crisis hits mainstream news, you know something big is coming. Storage mistakes can ruin good water, so here are the essentials. Keep long shelf life. Water in a cool, dark location, away from temperature swings, meaning not your garage. Closets, underbeds, or behind furniture are perfect. Don't store it all in one place. If a pipe bursts, a basement floods, or a room becomes inaccessible, you don't want your entire supply wiped out. I lost half my emergency inventory that way during a basement flood last spring, and I promised myself never again. Hospitals report a 400% spike in dehydration cases within the first 72 hours of a major water outage. FEMA data confirms this. Shockingly, most of the victims aren't elderly or medically vulnerable. They're healthy adults who simply didn't prepare. They assumed the tap would always run. They assumed the grocery store would always restock. They assumed wrong. As the economy weakens, infrastructure strains, and supply chains choke, water will be the first essential to disappear. If you do nothing else from this entire guide, start with water. Build your supply quietly, methodically, and immediately. Buy a few cases this week, a few more next week. Set a goal. 1 month of water for your household, then push for 2. Your future safety begins with this single, unbreakable rule. When everything else fails, water is your lifeline. Don't leave it to chance. Number 2, shelf-stable protein sources when crisis hits, whether it's an economic breakdown, a supply chain freeze, or a grid failure. Protein is always the first real food category to vanish. People panic buy bread, pasta, and canned vegetables. But the moment transportation slows or distribution hiccups, anything high in protein evaporates from shelves within days. I saw this firsthand in 2020 when entire meat departments looked like abandoned wastelands. My neighbor Jim waited just 2 days too long, and he ended up feeding his kids nothing but peanut butter for a week. It's not because he wanted to be, because that's all he could find. In a real crisis, the stores don't care about your nutritional needs. They care about empty shelves and nervous customers. Here's something most people never think about. Your protein needs increase during stress. It's not a theory. That's science. A Stanford study confirmed that during prolonged stress, the human body requires up to 25% more protein to maintain basic function. Your immune system, your muscle strength, your cognitive performance, all of it, consumes more resources when you're under pressure. And during an economic or supply chain collapse, stress won't be optional. It'll be constant. So imagine trying to stay sharp, calm, and healthy on nothing but crackers and canned vegetables. That's not survival. That's deterioration. That's why stockpiling shelf-stable protein isn't optional. It's foundational. Let's start with the king of emergency proteins, canned chicken. Forget tuna. Survival experts I interviewed last month all said the same thing. Tuna is not top-tier protein. Canned chicken gives you more protein per dollar, tastes better cold, pairs with more meals, and has fewer contaminants. At around $2.89 per can and roughly 32 grams of protein, it's the most cost-efficient long-term option. And here, as a pro tip from military survival instructors, pair canned chicken with shelf-stable mayo packets, the kind you get from restaurants for instant protein-dense meals, even if the grid is down. But the real game changer, something most preppers still overlook, is shelf-stable tofu. Yes, tofu. These vacuum-sealed packs can last up to 8 months unrefrigerated and retain excellent texture. The teriyaki-flavored versions taste shockingly good, straight from the package. Even my meat-loving brother admitted it was smart to keep a few cases after he learned about looming soy production issues reported by Bloomberg. Lightweight, versatile, protein-rich, it's one of the most underrated emergency foods available today. For those with dietary restrictions or those simply wanting diversity, dehydrated bean flakes are a secret weapon. They cook in minutes, require minimal water, and are now often fortified with complete amino acid profiles, making them comparable to full proteins like meat. One $12 bag gives around 24 servings, perfect for households that need efficient, dependable food options. My cousin with celiac disease relied on these during a hurricane evacuation when gluten-free options were non-existent in emergency shelters. This isn't theory, it's lived experience. Now let's talk about the most overlooked but most powerful protein tool, emergency-grade protein powder. This isn't gym bro way, it's a survival way. Isolate with a 3-year shelf life. At Costco, you can find it for around 87 cents per serving, making it the cheapest protein per calorie option on the market. And it doesn't require cooking, refrigeration, or even flavor variety. You can mix it with water and go. But here's the hack. Add it to soups, oatmeal, pancakes, even mashed potatoes. Your family won't notice, but their bodies will. During a crisis, that boost is priceless. Here's what supply chain experts told me bluntly next. If trucks stop for just 4 days, all protein sources vanish from stores, not start to thin out, vanish. Because grocery chains run on just-in-time inventory systems, no backstock, no buffers. One delay, and the dominoes fall instantly. If you think the government will step in faster than your shelves empty, you haven't lived through a real emergency. The solution? Build your protein reserves now. quietly, consistently. Start with a 30-day supply, then grow to 60. Mix categories: canned chicken, shelf-stable tofu, fortified bean flakes, and long shelf-life protein powder. This diversification ensures you're not left with monotony or nutritional imbalance. And rotate your supply use and replace regularly so nothing expires, and so you know how the foods taste and perform in real meals. In an economic collapse, hunger becomes more than discomfort. It becomes weakness, and weakness becomes risk. Your strength, your clarity, your survival all depend on protecting your protein sources before the panic buyers clear the shelves. Protein is the second pillar of crisis survival, right after water. And now that you understand why, it's time to secure yours before everyone else realizes what's coming. Number 3, multi-purpose cooking oils. Most people don't realize this until it's too late. But in every major supply chain, disruption from the 2020 shortages to last year, regional shipment delays, cooking oil disappears almost as fast as bottled water. It makes sense when you think about it. It can have all the grains, proteins, and emergency foods in the world. But without cooking oil, your meals become bland, dry, and in many cases, impossible to prepare. Oil is one of the most overlooked survival essentials, yet it's one of the most versatile, longest-lasting, and most valuable items in a household during a crisis. And right now, 3 major oil producers have already started limiting their distribution to retailers. That's not a rumor, that's the first quiet sign of what's coming. During the 2020 pandemic, I watched cooking oil shelves sit empty for nearly 3 straight months in certain regions. Back then, most people assumed it was a fluke. But earlier this year, the Global Supply Chain Weekly Report confirmed that cooking oils are projected to be hit even harder during the next wave of disruptions. I even spoke to a local grocery store manager last week who said they only receiving about half of what they order. When managers start whispering about shortages before the public notices, it's only a matter of time before households feel the impact. Here's the trap most people fall into. They stock up on extra virgin olive oil, thinking it's a healthy, high-end option. But for emergencies, it's one of the worst choices. Olive oil goes rancid quickly, sometimes in as little as 6 months, when exposed to heat or light. During the last shortages, my own expensive bottle smelled sour and metallic within half a year. That was money wasted, and more importantly, it left me without a reliable fat source when I needed it most. Lesson learned: in survival planning, trendy doesn't matter, shelf stability does. That's why the 2 oils you should prioritize are refined coconut oil and avocado oil. These are the workhorses of crisis preparation. Refined coconut oil, backed by food science research, can last up to 5 years when stored properly. 5 years. It's solid at room temperature, which prevents leakage, spoilage, and oxidation. It's excellent for frying, sautéing, baking, and even long-term storage because it barely reacts with oxygen. I've had the same jar stored in my pantry for over 2 years now, and it's as fresh as the day I bought it. And here's where coconut oil becomes a multi-purpose survival asset. It doubles as a natural antibacterial ointment for minor cuts. When storms hit my sister's area last year and her family went a week without power, they used coconut oil to treat scrapes when their first aid supplies ran low. That's the kind of versatility that matters in a real emergency. Then there's avocado oil, which boasts one of the highest smoke points of any cooking oil, around 520. That means you can use it for virtually every cooking method without worrying about burning or producing harmful compounds. A professional chef friend of mine swears by it because it can deep fry, pan-sear, roast, and bake with zero fuss. But what really makes avocado oil a survival essential is its nutritional profile. It's rich in antioxidants and omega-3 fatty acids, both of which become crucial when fresh produce becomes scarce during shortages. And oils aren't just for cooking. With the right strategy, they become true multi-purpose tools. Dip a cotton ball in coconut or avocado oil, touch it with a spark, and you've got a 5-minute fire starter, enough time to catch tinder and get your flame established even in cold weather. Avocado oil can also preserve and condition leather boots, gloves, or bags, preventing cracking during long periods of storage or harsh weather. In a grid-down situation, these side uses become surprisingly important. But how much should you store? Emergency preparedness experts suggest 1 gallon of oil per person for a 3-month supply. That sounds like a lot until you start cooking daily without restaurants, takeout, or convenience foods. Oil becomes the backbone of nearly every meal. And here's a pro tip almost nobody talks about. Buy smaller bottles, not giant jugs. Once opened, oils degrade faster due to air exposure. Smaller containers keep your supply fresher for longer and minimize the risk of losing large amounts to spoilage. Storage is simple. Keep oils in a cool, dark place, away from stoves, windows, or appliances that produce heat. Write the purchase date on each bottle and rotate like you would can goods oldest to front, newest to back. This simple system ensures nothing goes rancid and your supply stays reliable. Here's the most important part. Shortages of cooking oil hit fast and quietly. Won't see breaking news. You won't just walk into your grocery store one day and notice the shelf looks a little emptier than usual. Then, a week later, you'll see a limit sign, 1 per customer. By then, it's already too late. The people who stocked up early won't feel the shockwave. Cooking oils are your bridge between raw ingredients and real meals. They're calorie-dense, shelf-stable, versatile, and essential. In a crisis, they become liquid gold. Don't wait for the shortages to hit again. Load your stock no end. Build it smart. Number 4, versatile staple grains. When people imagine economic collapse or supply chain breakdowns, they picture empty shelves, soaring prices, and desperate shoppers grabbing anything they can reach. And while rice and pasta are usually the first foods to disappear there, it's a far more important truth most households miss. The grains that can actually sustain you long-term nutrient. Shelf-stable, high-energy grains are usually left untouched until it's too late. These grains are the difference between barely surviving on empty carbs and keeping your body strong, focused, and resilient through months of instability. I learned this lesson firsthand during the 2020 shortages. I walked into the store and saw entire aisles stripped clean rice, pasta, oatmeal, everything gone. Yet right beside the chaos sat bags of quinoa, bulgur, barley, and millet, untouched. Why? Because people panic by what they know, not what's actually best. Months later, when supply chains stabilized, I had to pay nearly 3 times the normal price for alternative grains because I had acted when I had the chance. That won't happen again. It shouldn't happen to you. Here's what most people don't understand. Quinoa, bulgur, barley, millet, and buckwheat are survival powerhouses. These aren't health foods. They're efficient, nutrient-dense staples with long shelf lives. High energy yields and fast cooking times 3, things that matter more during a crisis than anything else. Let's start with quinoa. A March 2025 Cornell University study confirmed that quinoa is one of the rare plant foods classified as a complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids your body can't produce on its own. That means during a crisis. When protein sources vanish from shelves, as we covered in Chapter 2, quinoa becomes your nutritional safety net. It stabilizes energy levels, supports muscle maintenance, and reduces fatigue. In stressful conditions, that's priceless. If you stock only 1 grain, make it quinoa. Next, there's bulgur wheat, a grain that cooks faster than rice and delivers sustained energy without the heavy sluggishness of pasta. Bulgur is incredibly lightweight, low cost, and packed with fiber, something that becomes surprisingly important when diets shift to shelf-stable foods. With water and fuel becoming scarce in emergencies, bulgur's quick cooking time becomes a major advantage. Then we have barley, one of the world's oldest and most reliable survival grains. Barley stabilizes blood sugar, boosts digestion, and creates filling meals with very little product. It's unbelievably efficient during shortages. Efficiency is everything. If you can find it, stock up on millet as well. Millet is drought resistant, easy to store, and extremely gentle on digestion, making it excellent for children, elderly family members, or anyone with stomach issues during stressful conditions. Millet also cooks quickly, saving Fula a small detail that becomes massive during long-term disruptions. And then there's buckwheat, a silent hero. Although it's not technically a grain, it functions like one and contains rutin, a compound that strengthens blood vessels. The Journal of Emergency Nutrition published a February 2025 study showing that during crises, when medical access becomes limited, compounds like rutin can significantly benefit cardiovascular health under stress. Buckwheat is also fast cooking, extremely filling, and ideal for low-fuel situations. But the power of these grains doesn't matter if you store them incorrectly. Those thin plastic bags they come in, they're useless for long-term storage. Exposure to air, moisture, or pantry pests will destroy entire bags before you ever use them. I found this out the humiliating way when I opened my emergency rice supply from last year and discovered a squirming infestation of weevils. It was disgusting and expensive. That's why you must transfer all grains into airtight containers or mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. This prevents oxygen damage, mold, bugs, and moisture from ruining your investment. Let's talk quantity. To build a reliable emergency foundation, start with something simple. 5 pounds of quinoa, 3 pounds of bulgur wheat, 4 pounds of millet. 2 to 3 pounds of barley or buckwheat. This mix can feed a family of 4 for nearly 2 full weeks, even without access to fresh produce or meat. And because these grains cook faster than rice, you save water and fuel to resources that become scarce during power outages or grid disruptions. During a 3-day winter outage last year, these fast-cooking grains were a lifesaver. While my neighbor burned through nearly an hour of fuel trying to boil rice on a camping stove, my buckwheat was done in 10 minutes and used a fraction of the fuel. Here is the part you need to pay attention to. These alternative grains haven't jumped in price yet. Rice has already climbed more than 20% in some areas because retailers are quietly preparing for shortages. But bulgur, quinoa, barley, and millet are still sitting at normal prices for now. I spoke to a distribution center manager who told me that their bulk supplies of these grains are already showing unusual order volumes. That's code for the smart buyers are preparing. Your job is simple. Get ahead of the panic curve. Add 1 bag of grains every time you shop. Build your supply slowly, quietly, and consistently. These grains give you flexibility, nutrition, energy, and long-term security, even when everything else collapses. When the economy cracks and shelves go bare, these humble grains become your stability. The time to stock them is now, not when prices explode. Number 5, powdered essentials. If there is one category of survival food that people consistently underestimate, it's powdered essentials. Everyone focuses on canned goods, bottled water, or grains, but when real disaster hits, when power is out, stores are empty, trucks stop running, and refrigeration is gonna you quickly learn the brutal truth. It's not the big items you miss first. It's the basics. Milk for your kids, eggs for breakfast, butter for cooking. These everyday ingredients become priceless during a crisis, and if you don't have powdered alternatives ready to go, you're going to feel that loss immediately. I realized this after speaking with a family who survived 3 weeks on only their emergency supplies during the devastating Nebraska floods. They told me something surprising. It wasn't water, canned foods, or grains they ran out of first. It was powdered milk and powdered eggs. Without them, every meal became bland, limited, and nutritionally incomplete. That stuck with me, and it should stick with you too. Because these powdered essentials aren't just convenience items, they re the backbone of comfort, nutrition, and psychological stability when everything else is falling apart. Let's start with powdered milk, because this one is massively misunderstood. Most people remember the chalky, unpleasant powdered milk from decades ago and assume it's still the same. It's not. Technology has transformed powdered dairy. New microfiltered versions like Augustin Farms Morning Moo taste shockingly close to real milk. My own kids couldn't tell the difference during a blind taste test. The powdered version actually won. That's because modern powdered milk uses fat encapsulation, a process that preserves the texture, creaminess, and nutrients better than standard grocery store milk does over time. And here's the part that should raise your eyebrows. Powdered milk isn't a luxury during a crisis. It solves 3 survival problems at once: calcium, vitamin D, and a ready source of calories. A study published just last month showed that quality powdered milk often contains more consistent vitamin D than some of the inconsistent grocery store brands sitting under harsh lighting all day. So in a crisis where sunlight exposure, nutrition, and immune function matter more than ever, having powdered milk becomes a quiet but powerful advantage. Now let's move on to powdered eggs, which have undergone an even more dramatic transformation. Forget the rubbery, cardboard-tasting powders of the past. The new OVA Easy crystalline egg products are incredible. You wouldn't know you're eating powdered eggs unless someone told you. One small container equals 40 fresh eggs and lasts up to 7 years unopened. That is 7 years of security, 7 years of breakfasts, baking, and reliable proteins sitting quietly on your shelf, waiting for the day you need it most. I made a quiche last week using these powdered eggs, and my husband didn't even suspect. The texture was identical. The flavor was identical. The difference? These eggs will still be edible years after fresh ones have expired in your fridge. And during a power outage, when refrigeration fails and your fresh eggs spoil in a day or two, powdered eggs become your lifeline. But powdered essentials go even further. The one product I recommend every prepper add is powdered butter, specifically the kind from Peak Refuel, which has been flying off the shelves since its release. Powdered butter lasts up to 5 years, requires no refrigeration, and works beautifully in baking. I tested it in a batch of chocolate chip cookies for my daughter's school event, and they disappeared within minutes. Nobody suspected a thing. That's the power of having comfort foods available during a crisis. They lift morale, maintain normalcy, and keep your family grounded when everything outside feels unstable. And here's a harsh reality you must understand. These powdered essentials will be among the first items to vanish when shortage rumors hit mainstream news. Why? Because the production facilities for powdered dairy and egg products are concentrated in just 3 regions globally. All of them are currently facing transportation constraints. One major processing plant in Idaho already announced a 2-week maintenance shutdown starting May 3rd, right before the expected supply chain stress period. So that alone is enough to trigger shortages. We saw this pattern before. In February 2023, during that major Texas winter storm, powdered milk was selling for $45 a container on local apps because stores were wiped out. When panic buying hits, prices explode, and those who didn't prepare early pay the price literally. If you want to be ready, here's what you should do. Build at least a 1-month supply of powdered essentials for every person in your household. A simple formula works best. 2 pounds of powdered milk per person, 1 pound of powdered eggs per person, 1 to 2 containers of powdered butter, total. Rotate them into your cooking now, so you know how to use them. Add powdered milk to smoothies. Use powdered eggs in pancake mixes. Test out powdered butter in baking recipes. Families who practice using their emergency supplies are 74% more likely to maintain proper nutrition during real crises. These essentials may not seem dramatic, but they are the key to keeping your household nourished, stable, and emotionally grounded. In long-term disruptions, morale matters just as much as calories. Powdered essentials give you both. When supply chains crack, and they will, powdered milk, eggs, and butter back. Number 6. Ready-to-eat meals and comfort foods. When most people think about survival food, they picture giant totes of rice, giant bags of beans, or stacks of canned goods. And while those items absolutely matter, there is a category of survival food that becomes even more crucial during an economic collapse or multi-week supply chain failure. Ready-to-eat meals. Meals you can open, heat with minimal fuel lore, not heat at all, land, eat instantly. Because when the grid goes down, when power is gone, when transportation fails, when weather traps you indoors, or when the shelves sit empty for weeks, the ability to eat a full, balanced meal without cooking becomes not just convenient, but life-changing. I learned this lesson from my sister in Denver. Last winter, a freak ice storm swallowed the city and wiped out power for nearly 5 days. Temperatures were brutal. Roads were sheets of ice. Restaurants were closed. And she had 2 kids to care for. She told me something that still gives me chills. If we didn't have ready-to-eat meals, we would had to drive on frozen roads just to find something for the kids to eat. The only thing that saved them was a stack of backpackers' pantry meals, which only required cold water to rehydrate. No stove, no flame, nothing. In moments like that, convenience becomes survival. Here's the thing most people overlook. During a disaster, you might not have the energy, fuel, or time to cook meals from scratch. Stress drains your body. Cold drains your energy. And when the economic system around you is unraveling, stores closing early, deliveries delayed, prices jumping daily, you need food that keeps you going without adding to your workload. That's why modern ready-to-eat meals have exploded in popularity, especially among smart preppers who understand that survival isn't just about calories. It's about stamina, morale, and mental clarity. And make no mistake, the demand is skyrocketing. Supply chain analysts have reported that the manufacturing facilities producing these meals are currently operating at 186% capacity, and they still can keep up. This is not normal. This is not business as usual. This is early warning behavior. The same pattern we saw right before the 2020 shortages. And if you visited Walmart, Costco, or Sam's Club recently, you may have noticed empty sections where emergency food buckets used to be. That's the quiet signal that the window of opportunity is closing. But here's the good news. Today's ready-to-eat meals are nothing like the bland, chalky emergency rations from decades ago. Companies like Mountain House, ReadyWise, Alpinera, Backpacker's Pantry now produce meals that taste genuinely delicious. My kids begged for Mountain House biscuits and gravy again after we tested them during a 3-day no-power drill. And that's important because morale matters. In a long-term crisis, eating the same boring food every day crushes your mental resilience. A Johns Hopkins study found that food monotony during emergencies actually reduces problem-solving ability and increases emotional fatigue. Your brain needs variety just as much as your stomach does. Another thing you must consider is dietary needs. In a real emergency, if you're diabetic, gluten-sensitive, dairy-free, or following a strict diet, you can't afford to eat whatever you find. The stress of a crisis is not the time for your health to fall apart. Luckily, modern emergency food manufacturers have created specialized lines for keto, low-sodium, diabetic, friendly, vegetarian, and gluten-free diets. Alpinera makes some of the best vegetarian meals I've ever tasted. ReadyWise has outstanding gluten-free options. These products remove the guesswork, prevent health crashes, and keep you strong when your body needs stability more than ever. Price-wise, this is the moment to act. Specialty emergency retailers have already started raising prices by 30 to 40% because they see what's coming. But mainstream stores haven't caught up yet. Last year, Costco sold their Nutri-Store 1-month bucket for $899. Today, I saw it at $699. That's $5.80 per meal. It's cheaper than fast food. Sam's Club sells their member S-Mark emergency bucket for $129 for a 2-week supply. I bought to the moment I saw the price because that number is not going to stay low for long. Now, let's talk logistics. In a crisis, variety and calorie density matter. Build a mix of meals requiring hot water, pasta, stews, rice dishes. Meals requiring only cold water backpackers, pantry cold soak meals, heat-tandied items, soups, stews, curries, ready-to-eat snacks, protein bars, nut mixes, puddings, cookies, those comfort foods cookies. Flavored bars, puddings aren't extras. They maintain emotional grounding for children, elderly family members, and even yourself. When the world feels unstable, a familiar taste can steady the mind. The smartest strategy is simple. Grab 1 or 2 ready-to-eat items every shopping trip. Build a 2-week supply first, then expand to 30 days. Rotate them. Eat one occasionally so you know what you're storing. Keep the ones you like. Place what you use, because when a crisis hits, the last thing you want is to rely on food you've never tasted in tea like. In an economic collapse, easy-to-prep meals become more than food. They become energy, stability, and sanity. The people who prepare now will eat comfortably while everyone else is fighting over the last pack of stale ramen. Get your supply now, because when the shelves empty again, they will. The only people who won tea panic are the ones who acted early. When crisis strikes, it won't to be the loudest person or the wealthiest household that survives. It will be the one that prepared quietly, consistently, and early. You now know the 6 essentials that vanish first when supply chains fail, economies crack, and panic buying erupts. Don't wait for headlines or empty shelves to force your hand. Start today. Grab one item, then another. Build your safety net, one small step at a time. In an unstable world, preparation is the one power you still control.